Íñigo Manglano Ovalle. Prolific, multifaceted artist, representative to the post-minimalism movement. Born in Madrid, Spain in 1961, raised in Colombia, a graduate of the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and an American artist for most of his life. Manglano Ovalle is known for his conceptual art, installation art, sculpture, video, photography, and many other disciplines. Also, his cultural and even political views and inclinations are actually publicly undisclosed, but we can often find the manifestation of his beliefs poured into his art. Manglano Ovalle has been featured in solo exhibitions in the Art Institute of Chicago, Museo Tamayo Arte Contemporáneo, Mexico City, Museum of Contemporary Art of Chicago, and many more museums and art houses all around the world. He has been recognized by the MacArthur Foundation, John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation. His work belongs to the collections of 40 major institutions. He's currently a professor at Northwestern University and he lives and works in Chicago. New York Times critic Holland Cotter wrote that Manglano Ovalle was adept in distilling complex ideas into inviting visual metaphors, while Jody Solem described his work as infused with a formal elegance and sociopolitical content, or, my very personal opinion and critique, minimalistic and yet powerful and complex underneath, fearless to project his feelings, opinions, and even capable of put some of his sense of humor into his work. I find Manglano Ovalle art intriguing to explore his heavily layered work. Many of the facets we can find in each piece can be very familiar on a personal level, and yet other facets are beyond my current comprehension capacity, making him a very interesting artist to explore and all of the background behind him. Dirty Bomb, Sculpture, 2008. This piece uses the shape and form of a replica of the Fat Man, the atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki, Japan during World War II. The piece is all color white, probably a representation of the purity shown during the political speeches of the time and even currently wants to justify the use of such a weapon of mass destruction. Then we have the bomb splatter on dark color mud right in front of it, like it was hit by reality, as dirty as it gets, representing the actual dirty intentions and consequences of throwing a bomb to people of the world. It's also very interesting to notice the attention to little details as the perfect balance of the piece hanging from a single point attachment, probably meaning something that skips something to my artistic and political sensitivities. Cloud Prototype Number 2, Sculpture, 2006. Part of a collection. This piece is actually a computer-based shape of a three-dimensional model from both space and time of the meteorological forces of the atmosphere right before a storm. Not just a simple cloud, but more specifically the force magnitude graphic of a cumulus nimbus type of cloud. These forces are invisible to the human eye, except for some cloud shapes that are usually hidden in the already troublesome atmosphere around the phenomena. That's why I believe the artists choose to use aluminum foil to give it not color, but just shape to mark and emphasize the dynamic nature, not of the object, but of a force of nature itself. I find this collection very interesting since I do understand the before the storm forces that are usually unknown or barely understood by most people. I have felt these forces before many times while flying as a glider pilot, and always lacked a way to share the feeling of these events until I got to discover this collection that successfully reproduces the idea both artistically and accurately in every single way. Iceberg, R11I01, Sculpture, 2006. Part of a collection. This representation of the underneath section of an iceberg is a 3D topographical scan of a real iceberg ID as R11I01, which the artist personally visited off the coast of Canada. I find this piece to be a very clever use of polygon lines, computer style, to bring the shape of the iceberg without an actual solid form, choosing to barely use the color white to represent the mass of an iceberg, and yet shows the fragility of the melting caused by climate change by using negative volume to represent the melting of the ice that eventually will fade away and stop existing despite of its massive existence. Well, coordinates included. Photograph 2014. This is a photo of a specific point somewhere in New Mexico. But what I find intriguing and fascinating about this image is that I believe the photographic media is not the actual intended piece of art, but what lies beyond it. The image shows the artist doing the installation of a well in Santa Clara Pueblo, New Mexico. I believe that by giving us the actual coordinates of the spot right there in the title of the photo, the artist is trying to invite us to do some actual research and see what is beyond what we can see in the picture. Maybe it's not exactly what we see in the image, the actual message, but what is all around the place and why that well was installed there. Manglano Ovalle is very community-oriented. He likes social projects centered on ecological issues. So I think we should take the invitation to go beyond the picture and discover it on our own. So I'm skipping the photo comments for this one on purpose, since I think the piece of art is beyond the image itself. Search, Sculpture, 2001. Manglano Ovalle is an immigrant himself. Not once, but multiple times. So the immigration topic is a sensitive one to the artist, very possibly influencing his piece named Search, where we can find the shape and use of space from a bullfight ring to reproduce the giant Arecibo antenna that was used for search of alien life. But placing this piece on purpose in Tijuana, Mexico, the busiest border in the world, but Mexico and the US meet non-stop immigration at everyday basis, I believe the message is very clear and clever. This is the manifestation of his political and personal sense of humor. A sculpture, a manifestation of an actual scientific device used for the search of aliens.